Remember this?
Indigenous children in Canada.
More than 1,000 unmarked graves.
The findings have led to an angry backlash.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is pointing fingers at the Catholic Church.
The accusations of full-on genocide by Catholic residential schools in Canada earned apologies from both Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Pope Francis. Churches were burned, and Catholic hate crimes spiked to record levels. And Trudeau shrugged it all off by saying it was understandable. But when someone finally did some digging for the truth, something strange happened. Nothing was found. After years of attacks on Catholic churches, it turns out that the mass grave story was a hoax. We uncovered the dark truth behind the largest spike in anti-Catholic hate crimes in recent history. Also, a single lady's post-Beyonce concert TikTok went viral last week after Matt Walsh ripped her to shreds. Was he a bit too harsh on the single life? And Pope Francis's unexpected take on Genghis Khan's legacy. All this and more on this week's edition of the LOOPcast. God bless everyone. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. It is me, Josh, and Erica. We will miss you, but today we bring on a heavy hitter, sharp elbows, sharper wit. We have Kara Moan. She is a part of the development team here at CatholicVote and has been on just as long as Josh, which is quite a statement to say. It's been a long time, been a long ride. Kara, thanks so much for joining the show. And if you could give a brief introduction of your history here at CatholicVote, that'd be great.
Thanks for having me, Tom and Josh. I'm honored to be here, but these are big shoes to fill with Erica being gone. So I can't promise to be as witty as Erica, but I will do my best. I have been at CatholicVote for 14, almost 15 years. I was the third employee. And fun little fact, when we started the Loop back in 2015, I never thought that we would have a podcast. But as Josh can attest, I was the one who was proofreading the Loop in the wee hours of the morning. And so Josh and I had rubbed elbows multiple times over the hour of the night that the Loop would come to be proofread. But it got done. Every time it got done.
But that's great because Josh never made mistakes, right? So you didn't ever have to edit
It's
anything.
very true. He never made mistakes. He was perfect.
Yeah. Easy job.
It got done.
So true.
So Kara's a senior development associate, and she handles people that want to support us, support the Loopcast, support the Loop, support CatholicVote's mission. So you cover the West Coast, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so if anyone out there is looking to get in touch, wants to support what we're doing here, you could have the absolute pleasure of talking to Kara, getting to meet up with her. So thought that'd be good to put out here before you hear all her amazing takes, and you're just, oh my gosh, I got to meet this woman. So
well, and to be honest, Tom, I have the absolute pleasure of getting to know our benefactors. So it's really an honor for me to do that. I say it's very life-giving, and I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. I truly mean it. So
cheers to that. Shout out to everyone who supports CatholicVote. Seriously, some of the best people I've ever met. 2 years ago, we're just going to start from the top. 2 years ago, there was a press release. It announced the confirmation of the remains of 215 children who were students of the Kamloops Indian Residential School, and they were discovered by ground-penetrating technology, so specifically radar. But here's a huge point here. They were not excavated. So this radar kind of picked up some signals, and it instantly, through the media sensationalism, became mass graves, genocide of indigenous children. It was completely blown up. This was the narrative. The narrative was that the residential school system in Canada was committing mass genocide against Native Americans, Native Canadians, through the state-funded but sometimes church-run school systems. So they were a boarding school, they'd stay away at them, and this happened from the 1800s to the 1900s. So while there were definitely documented cases of struggle from low funding, diseases, some instances of abuse, to ratchet it up to the level of genocide, obviously had some consequences here. Since then, there's been 83 attacks on Catholic churches in Canada. Over a dozen churches were burned, and this specifically came after the 215 mass grave story. So instead of tempering this and maybe looking for some more research and digging a little bit more, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, basically said that these attacks were understandable. That's a direct quote, understandable. And he understands where the hatred has come from. We had officials such as British Columbia Civil Liberties Union Director Harsha Walia tweeted, "Burn it all down." I mean, there was very public outcry against the Catholic Church over this specifically. So why this is relevant now, because this happened 2 years ago and it's been happening since, there was this chief, Derek Nepiak, announced that there were no human remains found at 14 excavation sites at Our Lady of Seven Sorrows Church. So this was one of the main places that they thought these mass graves were under. And of course, when they actually started digging, nothing was there. And in other places, they found potentially a tooth or a rib cage, but these were all things that just happened from natural causes. There's absolutely zero evidence of any type of genocide or quote unquote mass graves of children, which was the narrative that we've heard for about 2 years. So if I could just settle the score here so everyone understands, there has been zero evidence of genocide or mass graves. 83 Catholic churches have been attacked. Over a dozen have been burned down. Some really beautiful cathedrals. It's super sad. Now, if you follow the money here, there's been $320 million pledged for more research about this, and another $40 billion for compensation for residential school attendees. So a lot of money has flowed to people that were claiming to be victims of this. And then apologies, and this is a big one, apologies from both Pope Francis for the quote-unquote genocide specifically, and Justin Trudeau over something that we're now discovering after this news breaks is somewhat of a hoax, is definitely one way of putting it. So now that we know the score, Josh, how do you feel about I feel a little bit betrayed, but how do you feel about this story that broke out of Canada?
Well, on its face, 2 years ago, we didn't think this passed the smell test. I mean, we knew that there's some sort of, mistreatment of Native Canadians and also in our country, Native Americans at boarding schools. But the idea that there'd be mass genocide, mass graves, just was so hard to believe. Like, there's all these parents are going to know that their kids are gone. Like, give me a break. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't pass the smell test. I've been very critical of Pope Francis for many years, and, he deserves it. But I'm not going to rake him over the coals on this one, actually, because the media, the Death Star, the media, as well as the leader of this country is coming to you and saying this horrible stuff happened. And, like, what? He's going to get out there and start digging himself? Like, I mean, he has to trust. I mean, okay, I'm sorry if this happened. No, I think Prime Minister Justin Trudeau needs to apologize to all Catholics in Canada and actually throughout the world for this, because it's a bunch of crap. And now we have churches that are burnt, people who are, had nothing to do with this. Their church was burned to the ground or vandalized. And you had public officials who are trying to signal how virtuous they are by saying, oh, it's so terrible. I could understand why you'd be mad at Catholics and burn it down. It's like, dude,
Totally.
What the hell's going on here? Pardon my French, but this is crazy. And it's like, to me, it drives me. So we always talk about reparations for slavery that happened 150 years ago when we fought a civil war over it. But like, how about the stuff you said last month, that is causing violence?
Speaking of reparations, I think he needs to pay for some of this, not just apologize.
Absolutely.
Like, he needs to pay for the repair for half of these churches from his own pocket.
You're not $40 billion.
He did it.
That you can't even find anybody to compensate. So how about you rebuild these churches with that $40 billion?
Totally. Justin Trudeau line, shocker.
Big shocker on that. And he's kind of been known as someone that bends over. We've seen, the blackface videos. We've seen him wearing the Indian headdress. He's someone that has a very silk spine.
So
I think,
he doesn't like the Catholic Church, just like his father, Fidel.
Yeah, there's an interesting article written by Sohar Armani. We could talk about the Fidel Castro stuff, but
had to get the dig in there.
Talking about deep cut.
Whoa.
But the most interesting thing I think I read about this was there's a professor. He actually lost his job. He was working at a university in Canada, and he was talking about the similarities that this had to the 80s scare of Satanism back when people were
daycares,
basically, were being abused over a hoax with Satanism, and then also like the Blair witch hunt, like that kind of, not Blair witch hunt, but how it just became such a mass hysteria event. And if you even questioned, like you said, Josh, like you had the luxury of From America basically being like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. But in Canada at that university, basically this guy was probing. He was saying, well, okay, this story, I want to make sure this checks out, of course, before we level this crazy accusation that there's mass genocide. Of course it's inflammatory. So he's looking at, the radar technology, what it was picking up there. He's like, oh, this doesn't really make sense. He's talking to archaeologists. Basically what he found out was there was so much money. I mean, I mentioned some of the numbers here. We're talking about $40 billion now going towards people who are victims. That all is ending up in the pockets of different bureaucracies across Canada. And so for anyone to go against this narrative, it's potentially taking money out of your own pocket.
Potentially, not potentially, it is. Yeah, for sure.
So
it becomes
it's
an industry
to me to understand through that. Yeah, right. And it has become an industry. I think a lot of ways And I think that it's interesting to see that happening in Canada because I see it happening here, especially with things like BLM. The more that you basically take on the victim mentality and try to aggressively punish and take advantage of the moment, the more money you can get in your pocket to who knows what you use it for. In the case of BLM, buy mansions, but for them, I mean, it's just money that's never going to be found again, straight from the taxpayers.
Exactly.
Well, I think the problem here too is that there's this rush to judgment, and there's this, like I would say the problem in the United States and in Canada, like 150 years ago, was a tendency to think of our own culture and the way we were, the United States, as if we could do no wrong, manifest destiny, everything and it's kind of like, well, because we did mistreat the Indians and we did obviously slaves. We had that was horrible mistreatments, and for a while there in our country, we just kind of like try to say, well, it's okay. I mean, whatever. I mean, every country has its problems, but we flipped out. Which I think is like kind of downplaying the problem a little bit too much. But now we're going the other way. Where we're like, we want to show how much more virtuous we are in 2023. Like, we would have never made that mistake if we were in charge. Let me tell you, I'm a white person, but I'm totally embarrassed by that. My great-great-grandfather would totally be okay with slavery or mistreatment of Indians. Like, no. So I've been talking about this. I think I've said this before, but Professor Robert George gave would pose this question in his class. And these are kids at Princeton, right? These are the best and brightest. And he said, if you lived in Charleston in 1860, would you be against slavery? Raise your hand. Everybody's hands goes up.
Raising their hands,
like,
yeah.
No.
Of course.
Yeah, of course you would. There's 100 people in this class, and everyone raises their hand. In Charleston, the percentage of people who actually were white people were actively against slavery was like 1 out of 100. So if we were being truthful, one person would have raised their hand, and then we would have been like, well, don't go to Jim's baker shop anymore because he likes the black people. Although I'm not going to say what they would have said. So this idea that, you're so much more virtuous, like it's a completely impoverished view of what, like actually it's not impoverished. It's like not understanding that we humans are sinful and that like given the choice, you would do bad things many times. A lot of us would, unfortunately, because we're fallen. And so yes. So like, just, you know what? Don't whitewash your history. Yeah, I'm with you on that. But then don't try to go back and say, I want to dunk on my great-great-grandparents and how evil they were and how I would never make the same mistake. Give me a break.
Right.
Yeah.
Take it all in stride a little bit. Don't rush to judgment, like on the mass grave stuff. I mean, when this first comes up, like, we're using lasers. Sounds great. Before you rake us over the coals for a couple of years, do you want to like actually get out a shovel first and just make sure that, it's actually there?
I'll pose a question here because I think we've already kind of easily debunked, I think, a lot of the hoax, but I think the real problem is that there's a scary comfort in attacking Catholic churches. And we've experienced this in America. Obviously, it was terrible here in Canada. How have we become so comfortable with such a large scale prejudice against Catholics that have been actually acted upon in the form of vandalizing worship spaces? Like no other religion would tolerate this. Why are we here? Why are Catholics okay with this? Is that too hard of a question? It truly shocks me.
I was just going to say, I think we're too forgiving in that sense. If there's a comedian that has a line on this, I forget who it was, but he says, if any other religion had these sort of things happen to them, they've started wars and stood up for themselves, and the Christians, they just forgive and they walk away and they're like, oh, it's okay. So
I guess another question is this just an extension of a long history of anti-Catholic bias, but it just feels more prevalent right now? I feel like there's always been a strain.
So in the first 150 years of our country or whatever, it would be Protestants who are like, who are these crazy Catholics who, have their prayer services in Latin and they wear, they eat Jesus and they worship Mary and all these kind of goofy things. And so they, and they have their own schools because, this is the thing. This is the people don't talk about the fight over education for the first 150 years the Protestants wanted to make all the Catholic immigrants that were coming in from like places like Germany and all these other countries, and France, they're like, let's make them Protestants. That was the purpose of the formation of public schools, to make these Catholic immigrants Protestants. So the Protestant, all these Catholic bishops come from Ireland or whatever. They're like used to the fighting the British and stuff like that. They're like, so let's start our own school system. We created our own school system, and it's amazing. It was amazing for a long time, and so that was our way of trying to prevent us from being Protestantized. And so we spent like 100 years, like, hey, you know, we're not going to let you try to change us. And then after a while, you know, Catholics, I mean, we work hard, you know, you play by the rules, and we start ascending from the lower class and the middle class, and then, you know, even some of us doing fairly well. And then we want to try to prove that, you know, we're just like everybody else, and we can kind of water down what we do, and we elect the Catholic president, and it wasn't scary, and our institutions kind of go bland, you know. And so there hasn't been, for up until this recent spate of violence, there hadn't actually been, you know, a lot of anti-Catholic violence for a good 70 years. You know, it had been really bad for...
You'd say since Kennedy?
Yeah, I mean, even before Kennedy. I mean, I don't recall a massive amount, so it really kind of started to die down. But then now with this recent spate of stuff, it's not like Protestants are setting these fires. It's like, how dare you? Why do you believe in Mary? It's people who are, you know, very angry, I think, because they've bought into the lies of the sexual revolution. And it's this Catholic Church that's still saying, no, actually, you're not supposed to abort your children. And I think that's the largest driver of that, because the Catholic Church is unquestionably the leader on the pro-life issue more than any other institution. I'm not saying this to brag about it. Like, we fall very short in many ways, but on this, you know, people know the Catholic Church is pro-life, and I think that's the biggest reason why we're getting it makes the devil angry, and he's sending people out after us,
standing up for truth.
Yeah. Well, it frustrates me to hear this slander as well too, because I grew up in Michigan, and so much of Michigan is thanks to a lot of the bravery of missionary Catholics. You know, there were so many amazing French missionary priests that came and converted people and helped set up societies.
There's a mission church 8 miles from my house.
You know, exactly. Like, and these people were doing it truly for the right reasons. I'm not saying that every missionary ever in history has, but because we've all kind of wholesale adopted, oh, these evil white people from Europe came over and they just put people in slavery and killed them off through disease and malicious means. That's absolutely not the truth. I mean, I can go through plenty. We have a great American Catholic Daily Reader here. With plenty of good stories.
Actually, you know, not too far from my house, you cross the bridge up into the UP, Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There's a town, St. Ignace, named after St. Ignatius of Loyola, and Father Jacques Marquette. You know, they named a university after him in Milwaukee. They named a big city in the UP after him. The natives loved him, and they still have him there. Eventually, his body was brought back to St. Ignace. It had been buried like in several hundred miles away, and they revere him. He lived with us. He was one of us, and so that's actually the story of a lot of these missionaries. So
I was going to say, I was just went on vacation, and I was in India, and I went to see St. Francis Xavier, who was originally from Spain, and he is touted as one of the church's greatest missionaries. He basically evangelized Asia. And after he passed, he was trying to go to China, but after he passed, they brought his body back to India, which is where he is, because just like you said, he was one of them. The people revered him so much, and that's who they, that's who they used to convert to Christianity, and he baptized tens of thousands, and similar to both of these stories.
Yeah.
So it's kind of all over the place.
It reminds me too of we had someone share internally here. This priest, he tweeted out a picture. Priest from Africa tweeted out a picture of him holding a beer. He said after a long day of baptizing, I think he baptized 500 people or something crazy. He's like, yeah, I think I earned this one today. I'm
yeah,
like,
exactly.
It'd be great to get back to that attitude of bringing people to Christ and try to reach out. And a part of this, like, that I think people miss is it's not just all right, we baptize you, and then, we're off to the next one. Like, a lot of these people in schools that have been built all over the world, actually, were built to help out poor, impoverished children, many from the generosity of the priests and nuns, to help give people a positive space, to build them up, to educate them, to feed them. Like, I just really hate any insinuation that it's just the evil white people that wanted to just kill people, take people from the culture. That's could not be further from the truth if you go pick up a history textbook. So,
well, and to be honest, to kind of tie this back together, is that's one of the things. I'm not in any way trying to compare any of us at CV to the greatest missionaries or, Father Jacques or St. Ignatius of Loyola or any of these like amazing missionaries who left their countries and traveled, across boats and seas and whatnot. But truly what we do at Catholic Vote is a very missionary mindset. We're trying to bring the truth to people that don't hear that. And it really, I don't want to say that it gives life to them, but like in the same mindset, it's a different type of evangelization, but we are evangelizing with the truth and what's happening. And there are so many people who would have never heard this story. I mean, the mainstream media is totally ignoring the story about the churches and, that flags were at half-mast for months for a pile of rocks. So many people wouldn't hear that, but for Catholic Vote.
Yeah, it's like missionary. It's being a missionary for our times, like Josh was mentioning. We live in a pretty safe time in terms of being Catholic, but there are these kind of oppressive things happening, and so we just need to adapt to the time. So I think that's such a good point. Like the mainstream media completely ignored this, by the way. You will not see this anywhere on CNN or any national outlet in Canada, because of course it's Canada. Hey guys, quick break from the episode. So it's Catholic Vote's 18th birthday on September 8th, and we spent the last 18 years in the trenches with our little group of happy warriors, and you are a part of this team. So whether you've been here from day one or just joining us, happy birthday to you as well. So to express our immense gratitude for another year of your support, we are giving away a Happy Warrior pack of Catholic Vote merchandise for free. You heard that, for free. To enter your name to win, visit CatholicVote.org or check out The Loop for more details. We will also have this posted in the show notes on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Please enter completely free. Thank you so much for all the support, and happy birthday to you as well. But that leads us on, and I think that's a good transition here, because we have kind of a mixed bag of different places that are considered to be mainstream, trustworthy. I think we all kind of had quite a cold water to the face moment when the CDC and the NIH were doing a lot of things during COVID. But I think it's good for us to point out, to give people ammunition, if these are ever brought up as authoritative sources to win an argument with you or win a debate with you, we have some ammo for you to actually talk about the truth here. So we have a couple cases. I mean, Google's kind of a well-known one, but we're going to talk Google, the AP, Associated Press, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and the ALA, the American Library Associations. So starting with Google here, is interesting study. So MRC, Media Research Council, they do a great job. They're a watchdog, Media Research Center. They're a watchdog specifically for truth in media. And so Google has been suppressing GOP candidate websites. I mean, surprise, surprise, Google's kind of been doing stuff like this. But if you look up very milquetoast, what are someone's thoughts on immigration? What are this candidate's thoughts on immigration? The first thing that come up is Biden's, Marianne Williamson, I think is Marianne W.
Yep, Williamson.
Williamson, Bernie Sanders, who's not even running, and Elizabeth Warren, who's not even running. So I think that was quite a shock to people, which has real impacts, by the way. If you were just this is the marketplace of ideas, the internet. So if you can't even find people's stances anymore, how could you possibly vote for them? I think that's pretty alarming.
Yeah, it's just like when you sign up for Instagram and it's like, would you like to follow Barack Obama? Would you like to follow Bernie Sanders? Would you like to follow Justin Trudeau? Would you like to follow Fidel Castro fan page? It's all this stuff. It's like, hello, you're not even pretending here. It's just like,
yeah. Well, they kicked Trump off a lot of these platforms,
not only,
by the way, so you can't even...
They kick him up, and then they're like, here's the curated stuff that we're going to tell you. You like sports, here's Sports Center. And by the way, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. It's like, give me a break. I mean, it's just...
Well, and I think you see it too in people like Robert F. Kennedy, right? He sounds kind of conspiracious, right? Conspiracy theorist, but then you listen to his stuff and you don't see, or you see the Google and YouTube and all these different places are totally, they're not showing any of his media, and he's super popular. They're totally
he's
censoring
running for
him.
president.
Exactly.
He's a man running for president that he's not allowed on like
he's
4
in
or
the
5 platforms. That
saintly
is unbelievable.
family name of the Democratic Party. It's royalty.
Exactly.
How?
Somebody like him.
Crazy.
I get
man.
it when they do it to Trump, but like somebody like Robert F. Kennedy, what?
Kara mentioned following the money. And so the Associated Press, we this was something that I actually found, not to toot my own horn here, but I did finally set it up
Tommy
in the Loop,
does
which is always
research.
fun.
I love it.
Thank you. I do a little research from time to time.
He actually
So,
works, Josh.
Hold
Ooh.
on.
Don't ever accuse me of that, by the way, if you ever see this show.
Who signs his paycheck?
So the Associated Press, a report came out specifically about their funding. And so, surprise, surprise, the Associated Press, with some of the funniest headlines I've ever read, pretty biased if you ever take a look. They are funded by multiple left-wing organizations, including the Ida B. Wells Society, Steven Spielberg's Heartland Foundation. They also received donations from nonprofit companies in the past in order to fund a return from pieces that contain political agendas, such as race and climate.
Race and climate change.
Race and climate. Interesting.
Shocker.
So a lot of their coverage does tend to cover those two things.
This one guy told me something. He was very astute. He said, when Jimmy Carter was president and, we had massive gas lines for gas, you have to wait in line to fill up your car with gasoline, all these gas lines. And it was devastating. And everyone's heating prices were going up and all this stuff was terrible. And he goes, on the news, every news channel had an energy expert. He's going to tell you what was going on with it. Well, Reagan gets in office, deregulates this stuff. All of a sudden, there's no lines of gas lines, right? Everyone can just fill up on gas. And the price of gas goes, the energy home price goes down. He goes, that was horrible. Right? I go, no, that was great. Most Americans loved that. He goes, yes, it was good for Americans, but it was horrible for those energy experts. Suddenly, you've been talking on TV for 2-3 years. It's just an energy expert. Now this guy gets in there and just, gives us a little freedom, and suddenly you're not important anymore. So he's like, that was always a lesson to me. It's like, wait a minute now, something that would seemingly be so good and so awesome, there might be somebody who doesn't want it to happen because it might affect themselves. What? So like, wait a minute now, we have more articles about climate change. Oh, like it happened out of a vacuum. Like,
Actually, I think the AP, along with some other news outlets, were a big inspiration for us to grow our writing team here. Correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is crazy to us because it's like, Fox News tends to be pretty decent, but even them, they bring in the pronouns on the trans articles and stuff like that. And then the AP, again, you would just expect it to be boilerplate. Here's what's going on, who, what, where, why, and how. No, they want to put their agenda in everything. And so you're reading the article, and I'm halfway through the article, and I'm like, I still don't even know what's going on. This is not helpful. This isn't educating people. So we had to hire more writers because it's like, I can't trust these mainstream media outlets. I'm not going to share this with people. Like, they go to the Loop, they're like, we want to know what's really going on. Like, I want to know what's going on. I don't trust them. So right. We need to get more people. That's why you need to support the Loop, because we're hiring people to write these news stories. So, no, it's important. I mean,
well, I tell people all the time, too, that there's no unbiased media. there's no such thing as that anymore. And our bias here at the Loop is Catholicism.
Well, our take is there's no such thing as unbiased media now, and I don't think there ever was.
Right.
That's a hot take that I have. There never was. But people were more upfront about their bias. I talked to Charlie Seraphin on one of the interviews, just talking about, he was in radio for 30 years, something crazy. And he was just talking about the true reporting is being upfront about your bias and then trying to cover as faithfully as possible the issue. And that's what we try to do. But the problem with these APs is they're like, we're completely unbiased. If you go to their website, they'll say it. That's absolutely not the truth. I mean, I remember during the Nashville shooting, their headlines were unbelievable. Their headlines were justifying the shooting against this Christian school from this individual. And at that moment, I was like, I thought they were bad. But did I ever think they would stoop to this level for an ideological cause? Yes. The answer is yes. It was unbelievable. So, and that reminds me, so with the ADL, so the Anti-Defamation League, it's specifically created, it kind of reminds me of Southern Poverty Law Center. So they have these kind of hate maps, and they're supposed to be for anti-Semitism's their main cause. but they might be getting potentially sued by Elon Musk, which could be very juicy because in discovery you would recover a lot of the truth, I think. And so the ADLs report that there is rising hate speech on Twitter /X now. Elon is claiming that 60% of their revenue in terms of ads is down because the ADL is labeling them this way. And they hold a lot of these advertisers hostage because they all rely on this report for what's going on, whether it's safe to invest, yada, yada, yada. And as we know, there's a lot of these kind of alphabet soup places out there that hold way too much power, claiming that we're just for anti-Semitism. However, I have plenty of instances of people like Chris Rufo, for example, getting labeled as a hate speech guy because he is trying to get CRT out of education. What does that have to do with anti-Semitism? Nothing, yet now he's on a hate map that everyone knows, and he's getting people coming to him, threatening him, death threats, yada, yada, yada. I mean, we've all seen it with FRC.
One of our colleagues, Tom McCluskey, he was working at the Family Research Council the day that one psychopath came into the building shooting and shot the security guard. And I remember this. I've told this to Tom several times. I said, I went to go at Family Research Council before that incident, and I remember thinking, I mean, it's Chinatown. It's kind of a rough part of town, but do you really need a security guard? Boy, was I dumb. Like, yeah, no, this is why you have a security guard, because they needed it. That guy would have came in, because most people working at a think tank, they're just going to be working at their desk, typing away at a keyboard. That guy could have mowed everyone down. It's like they took their staff seriously, and they want to protect them, and they had a security guard, and that guy saved lives that day. That's it. That guy was a hero. But the person that came into that building shooting up the Family Research Council, he got inspired by trying to fight the hate from a hate map that the ADL put on there, because I don't know if it's ADL or that might have been the Southern Poverty Law Center. But the point is, you're accusing Christian organizations of hate just because they're in favor of marriage.
Who they are, yeah.
Wait, what?
Which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So this matters. This is dangerous stuff.
No, it totally matters. And I think, Kara, too, you go around, you talk to donors or whatever. I know that so in terms of political donations, I think some things are public, but people get nervous, I think, about being associated
very
with certain
much
places.
So. That
right?
is something that I hear not often, but frequently, where people don't want to donate to Catholic Vote, or they're very fearful of their name being out there. So they're very hesitant, and they want to do it anonymously, or make sure that their donation goes to the 501c3, where we don't share any of our donors' information or names, but donating to like our super PAC or any election-related things, their name.
They don't want the Brandon Ike treatment. He was the CEO of Mozilla. It's a powerful browser. I don't know if it's still around or whatever, but yeah, he gave like $1,000.
Firefox.
Yeah, he gave $1,000. Yeah, okay, so it's still that one. He gave $1,000 to the pro-marriage side of the California Proposition 8, and he was forced to resign. And people went after him and screaming and yelling and hollering. It's like, is this the United States of America? I'm sorry, so this is the kind of thing that worries people. That the hard left is they totally practice projection. They call us fascists, but they're the ones going around threatening people's livelihoods, getting people fired, attacking people,
And notice this is interesting too, because these are the same people that in the sorry, what was this again? The ADL. The ADL wants Twitter to take libs of TikTok off of Twitter. And this is like the normal people reaction to these ADLs is, okay, there's insane people that either are teaching your kids or a principal at a school that are on TikTok, on social media, posting their insane sexual fetishes or illegal things that they're doing in the classroom. And we're just gonna amplify it. We're not gonna put our own take on it, just gonna put it out there. And she's actually an Orthodox Jew, Chaya Raichik, she's in charge of the account. They are calling her an anti-Semite. They're trying to label her.
Why aren't they happy about what she's doing?
Right, because it's the same thing.
Right?
Because this is just
like they want those teachers in those classrooms teaching it. Why would they be upset by her sharing it? Oh, maybe because they don't want parents to know this is what's going on. Oh, therefore she's anti-Semitic. Wait, what?
Right.
Oh, it's almost
Exactly.
like you're lying.
Yeah, and the segues today have just been too easy. You guys make it too easy on me.
Well, let me just make one comment before you move, that if anyone is gun shy about donating to Catholic Vote, you don't have to be, because you can donate to our 501c3, and we don't share that information.
And that supports the Loopcast, the 501c3.
Exactly.
So if you want Josh to wear a gold chain on the next episode, just
Call me.
Gold chain,
Call me.
some sunnies.
Josh shows up in a 3-piece suit for the next Loopcast. Someone helped us out. That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate all the support. But the ALA was the segue that I was going to make. The ALA, American Library Associations, was an interesting case because there was a new president, Emily Drabinski. She was elected last year, and she self-proclaimed Marxist lesbian. And she was at the Chicago Socialist gathering, and there's a lot of clips of her talking about questions about how libraries should be places for socialist organizing and how we need to promote left-leaning causes within these libraries. These are all the same people that are talking about the banned books list, which contain LGBTQ tinged porn. There's no other way to put it. Porn, it's complete filth. In libraries, in school libraries, in public libraries, this is their mission, to get this there. And it's a membership organization, so there are libraries and places all over the country that pay memberships to this organization. It's one of the longest standing library associations in the world, I think, is what they say. And Texas has just left. I believe they're in the process of leaving. Idaho, I believe, left as well. And it's because people are discovering this is an activist organization. These aren't people committed to educating the public. These are people hell-bent on getting their cause, sticking porn in kids' hands.
Every organization, from the American Medical Association, the American Library Association, every ostensibly, quote, neutral organization over time will become left-wing unless it has a conservative mission statement to it. Someone made that point. I don't remember. It was like he called it his rule, but it's true. The Boy Scouts were a like their mission statement. They had it in there, like this is what we believe in, and they fought for the longest time. Where only a men can be the scout leaders or whatever, and only boys could be in there. Like all that stuff. And then over time, it's like, oh well, then they went to the Supreme Court.
Scouts.
They went to the Supreme Court in 1999 and they won. The Supreme Court said, yeah, if you only want to have straight men as your, leaders, you can do that. And you can say no to gay men being in there. And then they win it all. And then the corporations come by and say, well, you want us to keep sponsoring your organization, right? Money.
Right,
and they just went left wing.
Of course.
So every organization that doesn't have a concrete conservative mission statement over time will become left-wing. We see this all the time. And so American Library Association's like, oh, it's just libraries, it's books, and now you have a lesbian Marxist in charge. Great.
Yeah.
Great job,
It's so
guys.
enraging. It's so enraging to hear them continue to claim neutrality, especially like Obama. Obama put out that letter about banned books.
I love that whole
yada,
banned
of
books
course.
theme. It's so perfect.
What world are we living in, guys? Like, we're talking about, and parents are going to these school board meetings. Talked about it last episode. There's a couple more that we shared this week, and just reading what's in the library, and they're getting their mic cut.
Yeah, it's the best, dude.
Let's be real, though. We're not actually talking about banning the books. Like, any parent who wants to get them for the child, 2 clicks on Amazon, and they've got same-day shipping, and they're just simply being removed from, like, kid spaces where they're not appropriate.
Wait, banned books, if you can buy it on Amazon, how can it be banned, right? So maybe the banned book list should really just have Ryan Anderson's book, because that's actually banned from Amazon.
Exactly.
You can buy Mein Kampf from Adolf Hitler, but you can't buy Ryan Anderson's book on trans. Like, hello, like, is anyone paying attention at what's going on here?
He had an awesome Edify video about that, too.
He did.
Shout out.
Right.
Nice
Shout
segue
out
there.
Edify.
Good one.
We covered some media bias there. If anyone brings up those 4 organizations and doesn't know what's going on, now you do. You can check it out in the show notes for sure if you want more ammo. So we move on to a video that swept the nation. We're referring to her as Beyonce Hulu lady, Kara. We brought on a ringer. She has some thoughts. So you're going to watch it here with us right now. I'm pulling it up.
It's 10:45 a.m. on a Saturday. I am 29 and single, and I don't have kids yet. Here's what your Saturday morning looks like when you're single at 29 and you don't have a kid running around the house. I didn't rise from my bed until 10:15. Every time I thought, I should probably get up and do something. I thought, why? Nobody's making me. I'm not missing out on anything. I went to Beyonce last night, and I didn't get home until 1 a.m. And I danced and drank my little heart out, and I didn't pay a babysitter to watch my kids as I did that. And I woke up a tad hungover this morning, which is probably why I was in bed for so long. And I was just scrolling on my phone and I saw a picture of shakshuka and I thought, you know what sounds really good? Maybe I'm going to learn how to make shakshuka today because I have no plans and I don't have kids and I don't have a husband and I don't have errands to run. I can go to the grocery store and learn how to make shakshuka. So that's on my agenda today. Also on my agenda, probably a rewatch of some Real Housewives of New York. I'm also doing a rewatch of Normal People on Hulu, which is really spicy and I highly recommend. Weirdly, I'm into this documentary on Netflix about blue zone countries. So I've got a pretty stacked day. Anyway, I say all this to say, whenever I'm hard on myself about why I'm not married and I don't have kids and I should be further along at 29, almost 30, I wouldn't want to do anything else this Saturday. And I know that you can do all these things when you have kids and you're married, and I understand, but the effortlessness and ease of my life, just kind of focusing on myself and the shakshuka I want to make or the Beyonce concert I want to go to really pays off when I'm hard on myself for not being where society tells me I should be.
Beyonce Hulu lady. So I have to admit, my first thought was kind of harsh. You are 29 years old and you don't know how to poach eggs, make shashuka. Like, what are you even doing with your life, lady? Though I have to admit, being Catholic, we always called it eggs in purgatory. We didn't call it shashuka. So, little eggs simmering in the fiery red sauce. Gosh. So many thoughts on this video.
Kara, go. Soapbox, go.
I should probably preface this conversation by saying it's a sensitive topic for me. So just be cognizant of that. I think that's why at first I thought the commentary online, Matt Walsh was the one who that's how I saw the video, was a little mean and harsh towards her.
I actually kind of agree with you. That's my hot take.
She said she wasn't married or didn't have kids yet. I can relate, in the same boat. There's no need to smack talk anyone because she's, of anyone, most aware that she's 29 and not married and has no kids yet. So it's like I felt like it was a little harsh. But then she finished that TikTok by saying something about society telling her that it's what she should want and she shouldn't feel bad about where she's at. And it's kind of just like when my heart broke for her. She sounds selfish. I get it. Maybe she's coping by rationalizing her current situation, that it has some perks. It does. There's a societal pressure to get married and have kids. And for women, I think it's even more intense because of biology. So on one hand, I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt and say that perhaps she's trying to be brave and look on the bright side in the face of the circumstances of her life. And trust me, I've done that myself. But we could sit and discuss all day the maybes of what she meant or what she didn't mean. But at the end of the day, the thing that stuck out to me about this video was that it's indicative of the selfish culture that we live in today. It's all about me, me, me. It was lacking selflessness or even purpose. And that was the thing that kind of just... That was when, like I said, my heart just kind of broke for her.
So I think you made some good points, Kara. And I think the point is people have been sold, especially recently, that the purpose of your life is basically leisure for itself. So nothing that she said is inherently evil or wrong because, of course, within good measure, anything can be good. Not anything, but the things that she mentioned could be good, leisure. But if everything is focused around you, yourself, your pleasure, your happiness, you could almost feel it in the video, and I think it was a little heartbreaking in some ways. She felt like she didn't have a purpose,
right?
And I think there is an anxiety associated with that. When you don't have a purpose, you have anxiety because of that. And I think if we would have, that's just a lie that's been sold to so many people, and that's why, especially for 20-something-year-olds, people feel so anxious right now because they don't know their purpose. And if you would understand the world through, Jesus Christ and suffering and purpose that comes with that, or being involved in your community, creating systems in your life that give you purpose, anchoring yourself in your local church community, serving the people around you. You don't get trapped in this kind of, once I do this, I'm going to be happy, or I'm going to go to Beyonce, I'm going to be happy. But what happens the night after the Beyonce concert? Like if you're not building a life that is full and has true leisure and has prayer as a foundation and commitment to people around you, that's why I think marriage is an amazing institution, because it's the most public form of accountability that exists. You are committed to this person. You've done it before God and all of your family and friends. And so I think it's harder sometimes when you're single to have very public commitments and consistent commitments. But those are what actually do bring you true fulfillment and happiness.
Well, speaking of self, we said selfishness or selflessness, but that should not be confused with the self. The self is good. We ourselves, we are made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore we are good. The best we have to give someone, like what you do in marriage, right? The best you have to give someone is yourself. That's just like why in a marriage that's why you give yourself. It's why a priest or a religious gives themselves the best they have in service of Christ. And that's why it kind of just broke my heart to hear her tout her selfishness. I got to decide what I did today because I had no one to share my day with. I got to sleep in because I have no kids to give myself up for. Even the TV shows, this is my hot take, even the TV shows she mentions she watches, all about me. Real Housewives of New York, seriously? Can we talk about a more brainless, brain melting TV show to watch? That's my hot take. But it's true, being single does afford the ability to be self-giving to a lot of people. I'm not perfect, so I'm not going to lie. It's a constant struggle, but that's what I try to do. I get up each day, kind of just what you were saying, trying to make myself a living sacrifice, figuring out how I can give of myself, give the best that I have every day, whether that be to my job, to my friends, to my nieces and nephews, to the places I volunteer at. All of those things give purpose to my life and help make me less focused on myself, less selfish, which the culture is seemingly always promoting these days.
So yeah, it's just understanding what God has placed before you, what is your station in life, it's okay to kind of always look at and say, is the grass greener on the other side? And I could be oh, Kara got to go to India. I get to go to Indiana. Yeah. It's okay. I get it. But it's understanding, what was it? St. Therese of Lisieux that said, I think it was her, blossom where you're planted. God has figured out this role for you in your life, and try to do the best to honor it, to as you say, be rooted, Tom, in your local community, in your church. And just to try to do the best you can. So, I
pick up your cross.
And I have to appreciate, Kara, that you didn't have a Matt Walsh. I like Matt Walsh, but I think sometimes, I think he kind of...
He's a pundit.
That's a shtick.
It was kind of a shtick, and it's the more nuanced take is actually closer to the truth.
Yeah.
Well, nuance is never good on social media.
Right. And Kara, because we're in this cool, long form, you don't have to just tweet about this. I've been around CatholicVote long enough to know you a little bit, and you're someone that I see a lot of joy in. I feel like you're a very happy person. You're such a good example, I think, of kind of modeling that joy to the people around you. And you are in a situation, you said you could relate to this video. And I think I just want to ask you if you have a message for, say, another 29-year-old or something like that is making videos like this and clearly seems like a little bit sad that they're not where they feel that they should be. What advice would you have to give to someone like that?
Honestly, I would find a way to give back to people, that to give yourself to where you're volunteering at, to family, I have 6 godchildren and they see me regularly. Participate in people's lives, or give yourself the joy, the fun, the things that you have. Everyone has different unique gifts and talents. Maybe it's helping a neighbor kid do his learn spelling, or read to at a blind center for people who can't read out loud, or there's things that you can do that as a single person, you have the time and the ability to be self-giving in a wider variety of ways. Like Josh doesn't have the time, or you, Tom, don't have the time to like go and sit and read to blind people, or to, help the neighbor kids down the street, or whatever it might be. But I think the key, and this is kind of like the paradox, is like, in order to be happy in that way, you have to give yourself away. And I think that's what I've tried to do. There's, of course, a lot of people who are, in this single state of life by choice or circumstance. And I think trying to be hopeful, and when you don't focus on yourself and all of the like, oh, woe is me, like, you can be a lot more joyful about what life has to give to you.
Absolutely. I really do. Thank you for sharing that answer, and I really admire you in a lot of ways. So thank you for the vulnerability and coming on to share that. I think that's going to help a lot of people, hopefully. So we move into the Twilight Zone now. So I am up first here. So we're back in the church corner, which we've heard a lot on here. And so I almost hate to keep bringing it up because people get ideas, but so Pope Francis went to Mongolia, and he made the headlines once again for another statement that was confusing to a lot of people. So he praised Genghis Khan's 13th century Mongol Empire. And so if you're wondering what is praiseworthy specifically about one of the most ruthless killers of all time, it was for respecting religious freedom and unifying cultures. And that's a direct quote. And I mean, Pope Francis, I couldn't help but think of one of Khan's quotes: "My greatest happiness is to destroy my enemies, hunt them down, reduce their cities to ashes, and their beloveds to tears, and possess their wives and daughters." It's a direct quote from Genghis Khan. Now,
such a hero.
Right. Someone who conquered a lot of square footage, and I guess unified it through stability that came from the empire.
I mean,
but
like, this is a guy.
Kind of a bizarre.
Okay.
What are we?
National Geographic called him up.
What are we doing?
National Geographic called Genghis Khan a prolific lover, which is
because is it like 1/8 of the world related to him or something like that?
8% of the people in his region have his same exact Y chromosome, because that's what. Right? Because I have the same Y chromosome as my father, as his father, because the Y chromosome, that's how the sex is determined, right? And so if 8% of the people that hello, bro, like, and I don't think he was buying chocolates every day here. Okay, so
prolific lover. Wow.
So the question is,
I did not know that.
Why?
Definitely not buying chocolates.
Yeah. Why is this guy? Why is Pope Francis, praising Genghis Khan? And at first I was like really kind of concerned about this, but you know what? At least he wasn't praising an American Catholic conservative, because that would be a problem.
Ooh.
So that was my instant thought. I was like, but he's taking time on the plane rides to these places to go praise ruthless killers. Taking time out to rip on those backward-facing traditional Catholics is just such an insane dichotomy. So that was Twilight Zone to me. And then also, he took a trip to China, which, as many of you may remember, there was a infamous deal reached in 2018 between the Vatican and Beijing, basically allowing Beijing to appoint Catholic bishops. Which
what could go wrong?
Everything. Wrong. Everything could go wrong. I mean, there were 7 Beijing appointing bishops, of course, who, what does that even mean? They're not Catholic, that were excommunicated by the Vatican, that after this deal was reached, they were brought back in. So there's something known as the underground church in China, if anyone didn't know about it. There's basically a group of people that legitimately fear for their lives because they want to practice authentic Catholicism. So during the trip to China, there were some people that showed up to the Pope's visit wearing face masks, ski masks, hoods up, because they're scared of the retribution that could come from literally just being with the Pope. They took out a flag, they put it away right away as soon as he was gone, and they scurried off.
Yeah.
Because in China, it's such a surveillance state that they can digitally ID you for who you are. And what did Pope Francis say during this? He said, be good Catholics and good citizens during this visit, which how tone deaf is that to these people that literally risk their lives to come see you, and they're in the underground church?
Yeah.
But again, on this trip, took the time. It's the conservative Catholics in America that are the problem, and they're causing division and whatever.
So,
well, there's a literal schism going on.
Genghis
in China
Khan,
right
okay. China Khan's okay.
American Catholics.
now. The
Thumbs
problem-
down, huh? Yeah.
Of course, he's the Holy Father. We pray for him. We've had good and bad popes throughout the history, but this is just, it's so hard for me to watch. Like, there was a great article written by Crisis, Why Does the Pope Hate Me? That I think really laid it out very well in a much more reasoned, measured way than I feel probably about it. That kind of laid out a lot of the concerns, legitimate
That's
concerns.
First Things
that
wrote
American
that.
Catholics
That was
have.
a published, yeah.
First Things. Sorry, I want to give that proper credit. It was an incredible article.
Yeah,
I'm going to include
Jade
it in the
Hendricks,
show
yeah.
notes, but man, he killed that. So anyway, that was what I was feeling over the week. But Kara, your Twilight Zone.
Well, I have two kind of. As we've said already, I am fresh from vacation, still on, I don't even know what time zone my body's on, major jet lag here. But I have to say, to continue in the liturgical theme, I very much appreciate or love that one of the marks of the church is that it is one. And you can go to Mass here in the States, you can go to Mass in Asia, South America, whatever. It's the same Mass. It's the same. I love that no matter where you go in the world, we're one body. But I have to say that I didn't realize that we are one even in bad liturgical music.
Oh,
because I went to Mass twice in India, and it was both times like beautiful, like churches, historical, like the Portuguese settled Goa, and it was beautiful. And then you've got, ladies like in the front that look like they aren't wearing a habit, but they should be wearing a habit, and they're in charge of this music that they're like projecting onto like somewhere, and it's just like tambourines, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you serious? This is so terrible. So yes, we're one even in bad liturgical music.
Even
and
in
I
India,
was like, how did this happen? Bad. The Oregon Collegiate Press or whatever it's called, Gathering
Oregon,
Praise
yeah.
Hymnal made its way all the way over to India, which was just Twilight Zone-ish for me.
Yeah, I mean, just you mentioned St. Francis Xavier.
Francis Xavier would be rolling over in his grave.
Oh, for real.
That now the St. Louis Jesuits have reached their arms into India.
Exactly. Exactly.
I used to think that those gather hymnals, are you guys familiar with the gather hymnals? I thought it was Gatper for the longest time because the font written on it made the H look like a B.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, the Gatper hymnals. And like, no, it's the Gather ones, brother. I was like,
That's
oh, my bad.
hilarious. Oh, gosh. And then my honorable mention, Twilight Zone, is I'm a huge tennis fan. And I have to admit that I have followed Novak Djokovic for some time. And I think he's like the greatest athlete. And I'm willing to go head to head on anyone who would like to challenge that. But he did not get the COVID vaccine. And so he was banned from the United States for many years. He was banned from multiple countries. He sat out at the prime of his career, sat out playing in all of these Wimbledon, Australia Open, US Open for many years. Well, now that COVID has been, declared over, whatever, like the vaccine requirements have been relaxed. He's back and he's playing in the US Open. And Aaron Rodgers, also someone who got the third degree for not getting the vaccine, he was geeking out over Novax, he called him instead of Novax, at the US Open. And it was so funny because the photo that he shared on social media there was an ad for Moderna in behind, like one of the ads around the court. And so Aaron Rodgers shared this photo of Novax, and then he had like crossed out Moderna. And it was just one of those things where I was like, oh gosh, this is so beautiful.
Carrie, you a Jets fan now?
No. I'm not even an Aaron Rodgers fan, but I have to admit that like his stand for what he believed in was something that really made me appreciate his craft,
Totally.
I will call it.
He's the GOAT. He's the greatest. It truly makes me, that story makes me so mad, him and Aaron Rodgers, because I know so many other players felt that way. I mean, they're literally the best athletes in the entire
Right.
world.
They
And
watch
they're
every single
meticulous.
thing that goes into their body.
Yes, they're meticulous. And if there would have been 3 or 4 more major names that would have just said, no, we're not going to do this, do you think the Open would have continued? Do you think the NFL would have continued if Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and whoever were saying, yeah, we're not going to do it? Like, no, they would have not forced it on people. Absolutely. But people didn't have spines. Once again.
Yeah.
So completely agree, Kara. Good.
Well, those are
Twilight
my
Zone.
2 Twilight Zones.
Double up. All right.
Well,
Mercer,
it's not really
what you
much of a Twilight Zone. I just want to highlight something kind of cool. We sometimes people say, "Oh, you're too negative. You talk about the bad stuff." I'm like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of organizations that are afraid to touch the bad stuff and talk about the stuff. So I don't apologize for that. But I will talk about some good stuff from time to time. Yes. So it's kind of neat. Harrison Butker, he won the Super Bowl by kicking the field goal. It'd be nice if there was no field goals in football. It'd be nice to have no kicking. Nothing against the Harrison. Don't get mad at me. But he's good. If you're going to have a kicker, he's the one you want. He teamed up with the University of Notre Dame. He's offering a $10,000 award for the most innovative use of church property. So the idea behind this is that, it really is kind of heartbreaking, right? You see, as dioceses start to downsize and you don't need as many churches in the area, sometimes it's because you'd have in a neighborhood like 3 churches, one for the Germans, one for the Slavs or whatever. It's like, we don't need to do this now. We can kind of consolidate that. But it's like, you don't want it just to turn into like a bar. So he's saying, let's have a $10,000 award for the best, most innovative use of church property like this. And then share that idea with other, bishops and say, hey, maybe look at what these guys did over here. That might be a better idea. So I wanted to give it a little shout out there to Harrison Butker on that one. Good job teaming up with those guys to come up with something creative. I think that'd be good. So he gets the LOOPcast shout out.
Have you seen the Leonardo DiCaprio meme of him on the couch with the beer, like pointing like this? Like, that was me when his scapular. Did you see his scapular show during the kick? And I was like, I think that's a scapular. And then sure enough, like, it's all over social media the next day. I was like, I had it, man. Yeah, shout out Harrison for real. Good luck this year. Although I think the Chiefs got a tough schedule.
Well, if they're playing my beloved Minnesota Vikings in the Super Bowl, I don't want him to get the game-winning kick. I'd like him to lose.
Dude, talk about a team I'm not scared of this year. The Lions are going to run the North. Vikings are going to be trash.
All right.
Overrated.
We'll see about that.
Although love Kirk Cousins, but
I'm coming after my captain, man.
So, yeah, that does it for this episode. Kara, thank you so much for filling in. Erica, we miss you, but Kara, thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Miss Erica.
So Kara, if people want to support us and they're in the West Coast, do you have any contact information you'd like to throw out?
Sure. You can send me an email, Kara, Kara, at CatholicVote.org. I will refrain from putting my phone number on here because then I will have all sorts of...
Good idea.
But once we connect, I'm happy to share that.
Yeah. And I'll make sure I have it in the show notes. But,
perfect. It'll be in the show notes.
It'll all be in the show notes. Kara at CatholicVote.org. Ways to help the program, as always. I've seen a lot of these. We're at like 355 now. Reviews on Apple Podcasts. We're on the hunt for 1,000, I think. So if you have not reviewed us at this point and you like what we do, you can just throw us 5 stars or write a personalized review on Apple Podcasts. Spotify also takes reviews. And I think that's the only big 2 ones. Although you can subscribe to us on YouTube, comment, like on the video. That helps us a ton as well. And then if you would like to contact me, actually did want to talk about this. I had some people email me about Josh and I's election schedule or election special
podcast
where we just reacted directly after. A lot of very positive people liked the fact that we were kind of right on the spot right after it happened. So more of those will be coming. But I actually did have some very interesting conversations over email with some people that emailed in that maybe disagreed with some of our takes or wanted more context on a reason why we said what we did. And at first I was kind of like, oh gosh, like, did we screw this up? And then the more I talked to them, they're like, oh, I really appreciate the program. Just, didn't agree with this here. So I actually got a lot of interesting perspectives that I really much enjoyed talking. So if you guys have perspectives on things and would like more clarification or ideas for the show or things like that, happy to talk. I love that kind of direct line of communication as well. So email would be loopcast@catholicvote.org. And then we always end with St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. And we will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.